Welcome to Evolve Here Now, the podcast for leaders who are advancing the meaning and impact of business success, full spectrum health, medicine, and high performance in all areas of life.
This is your home if you are a leader who is ready to step up your impact, inspiration, and personal evolution so that you can serve at the level you know you're capable of and beyond.
Join us now as we recharge, elevate, and accelerate you on your journey into this accelerated evolution community of the world's top influencers.
I'm your host, Talia Jacqueline.
I'm the founder, Satyan Raja, and once again, it's time to accelerate your evolution and your leadership.
Welcome to episode 4 of Evolve Here Now. Today we have a really special guest, Wesly, and he is going to share a little bit about his background in the Accelerated Evolution Program Mastermind. Wesly is also a professor of consciousness at a college in Arizona. He's also a master coach, Accelerated Evolution master coach in training too, and he's just got a well of wisdom around consciousness, around personal evolution, around breaking through setbacks and adopting new identities and really your true identity. So I'd love for you, Wesly, to share a little bit about your background and your background in psychology and anything that you'd like to share about yourself.
Cool. Hey guys, it's a pleasure to be on. Thank you very much. Thanks for that nice introduction. So yeah, for several years, I think almost 14 and a half now, I've been professor of psychology at Maricopa Colleges here in Arizona. And about 8 years ago, I designed a course on the study of consciousness and mature ego development. And that led me on a really long path of self-discovery, spiritual awakening, learning about integral theory, taking on many practices. And I think in 2013, I met Satyan at an event, and we connected there, and I was able to plug directly in the content that we've been doing at our school into the Accelerated Evolution Suite, and it's been a heck of a ride since then. Putting all this stuff together and integrating it, it's been quite exciting. So we were able to share a lot of these processes with the student body and help them accelerate some of their goals, get over setbacks. It's been a powerful set of tools. So that's a little bit of a really short background about me and how I came about with the Accelerated Evolution Program.
Thank you. Tell me more. I'd love for you to share more about your background with psychology too, just in general, with all of the things that you've learned in that realm.
Yes. So several years ago, I want to say it's been about 13 years ago, I discovered integral theory, which is from contemporary philosopher Ken Wilber. And that set me on a path to understanding multiple perspective taking, developmental intelligence, developmental consciousness theory. And that got me into meditation, that got me into altered states of consciousness study and that kind of thing. And we developed experiential programming for the students at the school where they were able to directly experience some of these phenomena legally. And it took off like wildfire. Really, everybody just enjoyed the entire experience that we were offering. There was a lot of deep relational work, a lot of dyadic kind of work that we did with the students. And that just brought for them greater connection. They were able to make significant changes, and we were able to move them from a place of being really asleep, like a social sleepwalking kind of state, to a place where they were beginning to wake up, and they were able to cultivate that and allow them to grow up, and then offer them opportunities to show up in the world so that they were more whole, more present, more full of radiance, stronger presence. So,
Very good, Wesly. Wesly, I'd like to ask you from your background, and it's totally cool for you to dive into the theories that you touch and that you're in understanding of, and that is, what is accelerated evolution? I'd love you to share from your perspective as it relates to these modes and modalities and philosophies of understanding that you've touched.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about that a little bit. So, first of all, the phrase accelerated evolution is quite perfect because collectively, I think right now, especially at this time in our lives, there is an acceleration of evolution in general. I think we're seeing that right now with everything that's going on in the world. There's a churning of the world right now. There's an acceleration of change. And so this is happening in the exterior world, but it's also always happening on the interior world. And so for me, accelerated evolution is the quickening of a development. And we develop through stages of consciousness. And we can talk about that in a lot of different ways. We go from a sort of archaic consciousness to a warrior type consciousness to a traditional consciousness to a rational consciousness to a relational consciousness and then to a holistic integral consciousness. And we can't ever skip any of those levels. We can't accelerate through them faster by taking on practice. And obviously for millennia, people have been able to meditate. They've been able to use state changes to bring about that quickening in consciousness. And certainly with Zivrat's techniques and the refinements that Satyan's been able to do through his previous harmony vibration work and now with accelerated evolution, those same techniques accelerate the developmental consciousness within a person. So the more they have an immersion experience in and out of states and able to go into deep, profound states of consciousness, reevaluate their egoic struggles or reevaluate the goal that they wanted to achieve, that speeds up the developmental process within the person. So by going through state changes, through journeying through gross states to then subtle states to causal states, and then also even with non-dual states, those have a greater push, a greater power to bring about transformational change. And so obviously with the accelerated evolution practices that we've all been trained in, we're getting to causal states of consciousness, also non-dual states of consciousness.
You know, it'd be great if you went into those and take the time. It's okay to take the time to, if you would, go into those different earlier stages to more, I guess, expansive states and expand on that. I think that'd be very valuable for everyone to hear what those are.
Yeah, cool. So if we look at how the states of consciousness are structured, we have our waking consciousness where we're just here right now, we're talking, we're aware of the concrete here and now, we're bound by the physical properties of the universe, sort of our wake, gross level consciousness rooted in the sensory motor here and now. Subtle consciousness is any time that we've left into the realm of imagery, anytime we've left into the realm of emotion. So night dreams are a very good example of subtle consciousness, but also daydreaming or flights of creative, vivid visualization, problem solving, basic meditation would all be subtle level consciousness. Causal is moving into the witness state. So we move into a place of no boundary or feeling like we're collectively whole with something. And then non-dual states are very special, which is the complete union of everything that's arising. There is no longer a separation within that. So those states of consciousness, we go in and out of them all day long. So between waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, just walking through our regular lives. But through practice, we can go and immerse ourselves in those states, in those changing states from gross to subtle to causal by taking on practice. So traditionally, that's been done through meditation. That can also be done by altered substances. And it can also be done with full consciousness by using a technique like the Gnostic Intensive or a deep heat or even aspectics will very easily take people beyond the subtle realm of consciousness and into that causal realm. And once you get to causal, once you get into that place of witness consciousness or no boundary, where you start dissolving with what is arising, that has a bigger push, that has a more energetic power to create change and transformation. If change and transformation could come from people just deciding they were going to change their mind or through will, then we'd all be doing it from our gross level consciousness, but obviously that doesn't happen. So what is more rare is for people to be in profound states of consciousness. And then when it sidesteps or moves beyond the egoic clinging, or you dissolve the egoic clinging, something much more profound is present. I think that direct experience, that very, very powerful direct experience, is probably the vehicle for the change within the psyche.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've been around the block in terms of different methods, traditional methods of psychotherapeutic change and improvement and support. Where would you classify first of all, what turned you on to accelerated evolution, and what would you say its strengths are, or what makes it unique as a body of work?
Sure. So I think what makes accelerated evolution unique is it is the crossroads of conventional methods that are very, very effective. Mm-hmm. And it also adds to and creates something transcendently more powerful than what those conventional techniques can do alone. Primarily because they allow people to go into a deeper state of consciousness to reevaluate the originating trouble or the originating goal that they wanted to transform. So another thing to speak about here is that most traditional therapies emerge to address a specific developmental problem. So there's sort of an arc or a fulcrum of development that goes from being an infant all the way to maturity. And at those different milestones, there's a different kind of social dilemma, there's a different type of psychosexual dilemma, there's a different type of persona dilemma that we all go through. And these modalities, whether it be psychoanalytic work, or whether it's cognitive behavioral work, or whether it's person-centered work, those traditional types of therapies were very good at addressing certain level problems. And what's happened is those have been incredibly effective for almost 100 years now. And what we've got is a section of the population that is maturing in their consciousness that's beyond, say, that relational, more pluralistic, more relativistic level of therapy. So that might be addressed by person-centered therapy or something like that, a sensitive kind of therapy where you're talking and a lot of reflection and a lot of echoing back and forth with the client. What we're noticing now is people are piercing into deeper spiritual states of consciousness, and they're taking on a much more world-centric ideology and a much more world-centric spirituality, is that existential dilemmas, spiritual emergencies, dark night of the soul type pathologies are beginning to arise. And so I think spiritual technology, accelerated evolution, is the next therapeutic modality that's able to address these higher, more deeper types of problems that people are struggling with. Because there's a difference between a clinical depression and a spiritual depression. They have a different quality. One doesn't function at all and is centered around a kind of despair and hopelessness, and another one feels like a kind of a spiritual abandonment. And they have a different flavor. So I think our modes are addressing higher consciousness. They're addressing higher consciousness, and it's a remedy for these higher levels. And they're also effective in this other zone that is below it. So in that way, I think it brings about an important change in the therapeutic field. And also, it's a very, very good supplement to other types of work. So we found that, as we've shared this with some therapists that are down here in the Southwest, they're able to see some connections and how they can plug in a modality like this to cognitive behavioral approaches or classical, like I said, Rogerian type therapy where it's person-centered and that kind of thing. So it's a marvelous supplement. And it's also something where they can bring that to their already existing skill set and make it more powerful. We had a really interesting conversation just yesterday with a group of people, noticing the differences between what we call simple or basic PEAT and EMDR. And where I feel that the accelerated evolution basic PEAT is more powerful in that it has the potential of getting somebody to a deeper state of consciousness, and it's also better at framing the problem. I think it's more powerful in that way, but you can see some beautiful similarities, and that's a good way to introduce some of this work to already existing credentialed health professionals, because it's beginning to arise in the consciousness that we need to start including a broader perspective at how we look at therapy and the elements that we start looking at. So of course we have our 4 elements: thoughts, emotions, body sensations, and images. right? So we've got those 4 awarenesses, and we're starting to see that come into the basic field of psychology as well.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wesly, for you, given your extensive background in psychology and in all these different arenas with personal development, what for you was the most impactful in your experience with this work on yourself, personally or professionally?
Okay, great. So one of the things I always talk about is there's no substitute for direct experience. And within a couple of weeks after meeting Satyan in 2013, he offered me, at the time, he was really great. He said, I'm going to offer you a powerful experience. We'll just book a Skype call. And I didn't know what I was getting into. He didn't frame it or anything like that. And what I was taken through was our aspectics process. And being taken into that realm of deep causal consciousness and being able to reframe my problem at the time in a way that aspectics allows us to do was completely life-changing. So I realized, wow, there's something really rapid here. It had a beautiful framework to it. And one of the things I was most impressed by wasn't just the fact that I got taken to a deeper consciousness, but I used that consciousness to reframe and reevaluate what had been going on from that higher state. And I think that's the absolute gem of what we do. So if the diamond of what we do is the fact that we use that state to reframe and reevaluate what we're starting out with, whether it be a goal or a problem, I think the ruby or the sapphire of what we do is our integration questions, because it allows a rooting and a solid action into actuating what we do. So what really stuck out to me in my direct experience was those very powerful differences in the techniques that we use.
Yeah, thank you. And it's interesting because there are other modalities that have their own purpose as well, that do get you to a high state of consciousness and then kind of just leave you there to feel good. But what you're speaking from your experience, and definitely from my own as well, is that it really goes around full circle to the initial problem, where the problem really doesn't exist anymore. So beautiful share. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And as far as who you've been working with, I know that you've been working with students as a professor of consciousness with these modalities, veterans. Can you share a little bit about your experience with who you've applied this work to?
So down here, I mainly work with young adults, usually college-age individuals, and we have been able to really allow them a container to bring about important life change. And I think at that age, they're more eager, they're more ready, they're more full of vitality than they're ever going to be in their life for change. Their brains really aren't done cooking yet, neurologically speaking, and they're just more open. The life experiences that have not quite jaded them just yet. And so it's a prime sort of last attempt, if you will, at creating some actual neurological change within them. So obviously by using accelerated evolution techniques, by introducing them to integral theory, by bringing them to some form of practice, whether it be meditation or brainwave entrainment or somatic learning, they're really able to make very powerful change in a way that for me is sort of cross-training. They're making some sort of interior biological, neurological change. They're making some sort of interior self-identity type of change. They're involved in a community with each other, and then they're also able to take that out into the world and make a change with the action steps that they choose based on the goals that they want to set. So that's really been important with the young adult population that we've worked with.
I would love to hear a specific example with a student that you've worked with, something that you've helped them reach or overcome.
Sure. So I'm really proud of a student right now who I met about 6 years ago in a 101 class. And at that time, I would have called her an off-the-rack millennial. a little checked out, really interested in partying, really interested in her sexuality and getting people to look at her, really interested I found out just a couple months ago, really interested in selling my exams to the other students in class for a profit, which she just disclosed to me, made like $800, right? So, some pretty sketchy, millennial behavior. And she went on this journey with me through 101 and eventually was in my consciousness course and became just really involved in an embodied way. And she was wanting to help out, and she eventually was almost in a teacher assistant kind of role. And she did that for about 4 years. And then just recently, when we embarked on my Cylogia project last year, she was the first to enroll in that. And within a month of that project starting, which did include some accelerated evolution sessions for her, she decided that she was going to enter into a grad program. And so I'm very excited to say that she was just accepted last year into Argosy University's psychology doctorate program. And she's the youngest applicant they've ever accepted. Yeah, so there's a really good success story from somebody who was just kind of, like I said, social sleepwalking and asleep, and interested in taking advantage of life, and now is very plugged into service, very plugged into transformation, and really excited about moving further. And she's also very interested in a comparative study between conventional modes and accelerated evolution techniques. So I've been trying to get her in touch with Zivarad so she could possibly talk to him about that. So that's a big, long arc of change in somebody, in like 6 years, where she really made some positive changes within herself. I don't think they came from outside,
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, guys. You asked about veterans work. So about a year and a half ago, I was very inspired at an event that Satyan had put on in Surrey, in Vancouver, and he had created an outreach program for veterans over the weekend where he was going to run a trauma release for everyone. I was really inspired by that, and I knew that I had students that were veterans back home, and he had mentioned that he personally felt integrous in his heart when he worked with a veteran, especially in a trauma situation, to donate that session to them for their betterment, for the betterment of the community. And that just really hit me. So that was something I wanted to come home and put into practice. So we ran some trauma releases on a handful of veterans that I knew through my classes and some of their friends, and we had a lot of success with it. I felt very good about that. And then with a little bit of following the flow, we eventually got connected with the Veterans Directory down here in Arizona, which runs a nonprofit organization to get veterans plugged in for veterans services. And one of the things I was proud to do was be able to offer sessions from Cylogia for veterans trauma or any kind of, extreme exposure they would have during military service. And so we've been offering some trauma release services to veterans.
For those of you who are listening who don't know what the trauma release process is under the accelerated evolution modalities, I'd love for you to share a little bit about the impact of a trauma release and especially in the work that you've been doing with the veterans.
Yeah, so trauma release is a very, very potent practice that we have in our suite of practices that we're able to utilize. And it is incredibly quick. It's very, very intense. It's very reliant upon the power of presence in the practitioner who's using that particular method at the time. And what it allows somebody to do is to completely neutralize and transcend the original looping anxiety or looping fear that they have around an event that didn't complete in their psyche. So at the moment when it happened, something in their psyche decided to retreat and completely repress the event so that they could cope with it. But then what happened was the thoughts and emotions keep cycling within that person. And so over time that compounds and creates problems. So this process is really just like a scalpel and goes into the intensity of that situation and allows somebody to very quickly flip it and realize that they are indeed connected to the here and now, and that experience is now behind them, and that they're in this present moment now. So.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, we've had such powerful experiences with veterans, and actually veterans and many people have had traumatic experiences from various incidents, physical, mental, emotional incidences, and we're seeing the immediate reduction of the circumstance that triggered this trauma, the traumatic. We're seeing an immediate reduction in its hold over their life, over people's life. Like it's no longer a grip. It's now something that happened. Unfortunately, it happened, but now there's a sense of moving on and having life purpose and self-value once again.
Yeah.
I think that's a congruent experience I've felt from everyone who's gone through the trauma release.
Definitely.
Yeah.
In fact,
Absolutely.
Wesly, when I first joined Accelerated Evolution, Wesly, that was the first process that I experienced, and Wesly performed it on me as a coach. And it's interesting. I'll share a success story with the process, but I had an experience as a child of being evicted from one of our homes, and it was really connected to money for me. And so Wesly did a trauma release on that experience of being evicted, and it was really interesting. It was a really intense process. Within 20 minutes, I felt a release. And then a few days later, I was home back in LA visiting my family, and we happened to drive by the house. And I used to avoid it at all costs. And I remember driving past the home and just feeling nothing but gratitude. Whereas in the past, it would create such anxiety and turmoil and such sadness. I wouldn't even drive down the road. So it's really profound in a lot of different cases of trauma. So veterans included, and any personal trauma that I'm sure everyone has experienced. So thank you for sharing about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you've shared a lot today. Talia, is there any last things you want to check in with?
Yeah, I would love Wesly to take a few minutes to just share about Psylogia, the Institute for Consciousness, and what you are doing with that and the Genius Project, because it's so incredible. So I'd love for you to have the opportunity to share.
We're very supportive and proud of what you're doing. So let's please share it with everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. So the quick backstory on this is just a little over a year ago, I was in Satyan's backyard, and he was doing a little laser coaching on each one of us. And I'll see if I can get the edited version for the podcast, since there was some colorful language that morning. But I think what he was trying to say to me was, go home, stop trying to get on somebody else's train, get on your own train, build your own tracks, build your own train, and get it going. Go home and start a school for you, how you understand consciousness. Go home and start a school that's yours. So that's really been in play for about a year. And the culmination has been the Psylogia Institute for the Development of Consciousness, Purpose, and Transformation. And we are dedicated to awakening, maturing, and serving the healthiest consciousness for the greatest number for self, culture, and nature. So we wake people up, we get them plugged in. That's what we do. And very exciting, just yesterday, we became a 501c nonprofit. I signed the papers with the lawyer, and we've got a brand new website up at psylogia.org, so we're really excited. And our first program for the summer was something called the Genius Project, and we're really excited about this. It's our entry-level program for people who are looking for some direction, looking for some guidance and some mentoring. So it's our opportunity to uncover the deep-seated genius in each individual and allow them to uncover their life purpose, their reason for service. And our program mentors their innate brilliance, does any healing around old suppressions of those gifts, removes any traumas that would have blocked that growth or blocked that arising in them. And we also take them through co-creating goals and putting their goals into action and putting it into service. So we're really excited about that. And we've got about 39 members, and tonight is our first group meeting.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Yes.
Fantastic. Bravo. Go knock them alive.
Knock them alive. I like that. Absolutely.
Knock them awake.
Knock them awake. That's true.
Thank you so much for sharing. So for those of you who want to check out a little bit more about the work that Wesly does, it's psylogia.org. So psylogia.org. And thank you for tuning in again, everyone, for another incredible episode here. And it's been a real pleasure to have you on our show, Wesly. Thank you so much for contributing so much.
Thank you very much. It's been absolutely life-changing. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Evolve Here Now. To learn more about our programs, retreats, trainings, and to be a part of our community, go to acceleratedevolutionacademy.com.